What's up, guys? We're back with another Super 7 Ultimates TMNT review, taking a look at another Wave 4 figure, and without a doubt one of the more anticipated in the line just because of who he is, because he's always a fan favorite. We're taking a look today at Casey Jones, our masked Vigilante. So, of course, typical fashion for the Ultimates line, we've got the slipcover treatment on the box, so you've got that green ooze slime motif with the manhole cover on the front that has Casey's picture there on it. I do love the fact that these slipcovers are not just generic, that they always do that, so that's kind of a cool little, just a fun little thing. Of course, you know, it is a slipcover still, so pop it off and you get your actual box within. So we've got our figure there in the big window with all of his accessories front and center. You've got that green brick motif that wraps around the box, and then on the back we do get his nameplate, his little call out, and then of course a bio for our resident hockey mask wearing psychopath. So let's do it. Let's pull him out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Ultimates Casey Jones. This is the third human that we've gotten so far in this line. So we got Shredder in Wave 2, we got April in Wave 3, and then of course Casey being Wave 4. And I would go so far as to say right off the bat that this is the best human figure that we've gotten. He seems like he is in many ways a progression or like a transition piece to maybe changing things up a little bit, because he does have one particular thing about his articulation that I want to see going forward. It's not quite there yet, but it's something that I've wanted to see for a while. So he is he's very similar to Shredder in many ways, but at the same time he is still kind of his own thing. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around, all that good stuff. You've got a head that is unfortunately like pretty locked down. Like he can look pretty much straight. That's about it. You've got a little bit of tilt, and then you've got rotation, but his hair is going to hit that shoulder pad if you go to his right, your left, and then his mask is going to hit it too. So you're going to have to watch how you move that head around. Arms will go out at the shoulder, and then of course they do rotate. Now his left, your right here can't go past that shoulder pad. His other arm can just fine. You've got a bicep swivel. We've got single jointed elbows, but they are slightly more deep cut than normal, so they do go better than 90. We've got vertical hinges on him in the box and then rotation here. And then as far as the waist, this is that area where I said things are a little bit different. So it's thinking of like Shredder in particular. He just has a waist twist. This is actually a ball peg, so he can go backwards and forwards slightly and a little bit of tilt. And then of course it's also your rotation, so he kind of bobbles in there. It's not where I really want it to be. Like, I'd love it to be closer to, because the Four Horsemen, of course, do this line, I'd love it to be closer to Mythic Legions. This is kind of like a step in the right direction kind of thing, but it's not exactly there yet. But he does have more movement potential than a lot of other figures at this point. So that's a good thing. We're going in the right direction. Legs go out. I mean, that's almost unnaturally far. They kick forward all the way. They kick backwards pretty far. You do have your thigh cut up there. We've got a single jointed knee. Mine have been kind of tight, like not too bad, but you know, as you can see, I am kind of having to work it. You got rotation there as well, so single jointed rotating knees. You've got rocker, a little bit of rocker, not a lot, because of course he does have shoes on, so the ankles go down inside there. It kind of does hinder that. And then you've got a little bit of ankle hinge there for forward and backward movement. So not too bad, but he does have a little bit of limitation down there just because of the design of that shoe and how that sort of ankle just sort of sinks down in there. What's cool about him though is of course the fact that he does have this, you know, ball peg waist. It is a little unsightly though. Like the way it actually connects doesn't look like it's all that like centered correctly in some instances. So you might have to work with him to get him to sort of pose and keep it out of your sight line. But it does at least to me seem like they are trying to figure out a way to better implement something like this in these figures, because otherwise there'd be no reason to have done this at all. They could have just gone with a waist twist like Shredder and called it a day, but instead they did give us something new and a little bit different when it comes to some of these figures. So, you know, think about it in the context of Bebop or Rocksteady. They could have absolutely used it to their advantage. Even something as small as this would have made a big difference. So if we see something closer to Mythic Legions down the line, we're going to see some really good forward, backward, side-to-side pivot when it comes to these waist joints. Aesthetically, though, I am pretty pleased with this guy. I have seen some initial concern or maybe some criticism that he looks a little thin or like lanky in many ways, and I'm not so sure that that's entirely accurate. Like he looks, I don't know, he looks like the figure, the Playmates figure, just upscaled and not in that squatty pose, which I think does, kind of a disservice to the figure. It makes him look a little awkward. This looks fine to me. I'm perfectly fine with his stature, with his build. He looks very fit, and he looks like he's wearing tight pants, really, tight sweatpants. So it makes him look maybe a little bit more lithe than you would otherwise. But I'm pretty happy with his overall proportioning, and he looks good. I mean, he absolutely looks like somebody that you would not want to mess with, right? I mean, he's very fit, very muscular. The one thing that kind of sticks out to me that's kind of weird, and I'm just going to get it out of the way now, he has got one gnarly looking belly button on this stomach that I just can't take my eyes off of. Not in a good way either. It's not like I really want to stare at this thing, but it's just kind of weird looking. Something about it, the way it catches the light, doesn't do it for me. So if that's the one problem I have, I suppose that's really nothing. It's the most non-essential thing to whine about, but here we are. Otherwise, belly button aside, I do think he looks really good. This is very much an upscaled Playmates figure. And they got a lot of the things right here. The colors look really good. The tone of the gray for the sweatpants, the green for the shoes, the sort of teal color for the shirt, and then of course that shoulder pad. I do kind of wish there was a little bit of shading on these arms, like to bring out some of what looks like, the hair sculpted in there. But we do have really good paints for the glove and then for the wraps here, and there's a lot of wash on this and kind of dry brushing to bring that out and make it look kind of just nasty, because of course it would be kind of gross and dirty for him kind of duking it out in the streets. You've got the strap that runs down the back. The shirt looks really good as far as being a tattered piece. Like it's part of the torso of that buck, so it's not an overlay or anything like that. So it's a sculpted on different texture to that chest. So you've got the exposed skin with the shirt there. That does look really good. The line work for the drawstring on the sweatpants and on the hoodie, because it's a hooded sweatshirt that he's wearing. The hood's always just been down. Is really clean and crisp also. As far as sizing goes, I think he's pretty well sized. Also, we will of course do some size comparisons to other Casey's, to figures within this line, and then other stuff here shortly. My main concern with this guy, at least for a while, was the head sculpt. In the original promo shots, he looked like his head was almost kind of boxy and like really wide, like cubish almost. And I don't see that here. Maybe it's just my eyes playing tricks on me, but he looks as though the head has been changed slightly. To my knowledge, it actually hasn't, but it sort of looks that way to me. Otherwise, I think the mask looks good. It's very on point to the Playmates figure. All of the kind of hallmarks are there. The black for the mouth guard, the black under the nose and around the eyes, and then of course the black that lines those really angular cheekbones. I like the way this head looks. The stark white and black really works in comparison to the rest of the body. The only real negatives that I've got on this is that I do have what looks to be like a really splotchy ear. Well, kind of both of them, really. So, like, the ear is sculpted there, but the paint just seems to be kind of globbed on a little bit, which is a bit unfortunate. I'm not too happy with that. His left is a little bit better than his right, so he's going to have kind of an asymmetrical ear situation going on. But the blue and the red, blue in the hair, and then, of course, the red for the strap on the mask does look really good as it kind of goes back and sinks into his hair. The hair sculpt also is in particular really nice. It's very much on point to that Playmates figure. So I do think he looks really nice. I mean, this on many days is one of the ways that I'm going to think of Casey Jones. It's either going to be this or it's going to be the movie version, because this, of course, was the toy, the Playmates toy that I had as a kid. So it's kind of ingrained in my memory that when I think of Casey Jones, this is definitely going to be one of those images that I see. And I think Super7 kind of locked it all down in terms of all the key things, the tattered clothing, the colors, and then of course that mask with the blue and the red up top to really kind of contrast things. I think he looks good, sized right, and I think he is proportionally a very fit, no nonsense kind of guy that you don't want to mess with. This is not somebody that you would want to come across in Central Park. Now, of course, we have to do some size comparisons and just comparisons in general, but we're going to start with comparisons to other Casey's from this era. So of course, you know, the first thing to compare to is the Playmates figure. And you can see they are very, very similar. Mask, shirt color, the pauldron, the shoulder guard, the glove, the wraps, the shoe color, the tattered nature of the pants around the knees and the ankles. Super 7 hits on all of those elements when it comes to translating this guy into this guy, and I think they did a pretty solid job here. By comparison, we've got our other contemporaries, so we've got our NECA figures. So you've got your movie Casey Jones, and then you've got your cartoon Casey Jones. These two are really the only ones that kind of compare, but even then, they really don't. I mean, they're still very different. They are similar, but still very different when it comes to the overall composition of the figure, and then of course just the styling and the coloring. So movie Casey Jones is far more real world. You can see he is also a little bit taller than the Super 7 version, but then the Super 7 version is a little bit taller than the NECA cartoon. So a handful of options for your true vintage Casey Jones as far as anything from the original era of Turtles. And then, of course, as far as actual size comparisons go, we've got to start with stuff within the line. So we'll start with Donatello, of course, from the same wave. And you can see that Casey is taller than him, which makes perfect sense. That seems fine to me. I think that's all right. And then, of course, you know, I made the comparison that he is very Shredder-like in many ways. So it makes sense to compare him to Shredhead. And you can see that they pretty much line up very similarly too, which makes sense. You know, within the confines of the line, human males are probably going to average out to be the same height. So that works fine. I think that looks pretty good. No real issues to speak of there. Let's move these guys aside and we'll do, you know, some other lines. I'm going to start with a Mythic Legions. This is of course not a standard Mythic Legions, but it is a Mythic Legions nonetheless with a custom head sculpt. And I don't know, maybe I just want to show that off. It is pretty cool. And then we've got, let's do something else from NECA. So here he is with Mutagen Man from the recent 2-pack. We will do a Marvel Legends. So let's pull fake He-Man aside. And we will do Psycho Man from the recent Fantastic Four wave. And that gives you a good idea of what he looks like next to a 6-inch figure. So he's definitely taller. And of course, bulkier as a result, since that's the way physics works. And then here he is with the Faker from Masterverse for a larger figure that's still within the 7-inch scale, since Faker kind of skews a little tall, since He-Man also skews kind of a little tall in that particular line. And then let's do one more 6-inch figure, just to give you a more normal representation of a 6-inch figure next to him. So here is our MMPR Black. You can see that Casey is definitely a little bit taller than most 6-inch figures. He's going to be a little bit beefier and bulkier as a result. Not too much, because he's still, you know, keeping it tight. But otherwise, I think he's sized pretty well inside and outside of this line, especially when it comes to other 7-inch scale figures, you know, like Mythic Legions. He's going to fit in just fine. Now, as far as accessories goes, just like the Turtles, Casey is pretty well stacked. You know, he had a lot of stuff for his vintage figure, so he gets it all here. And then, of course, we do get some extra stuff also because of, you know, they're going to give us hands and all that kind of stuff. So he comes with vertically hinged gripping hands on him in the box, again. And then we also get a set, so, you know, this is a set of lateral hinged gripping hands, a set of style pose hands, but they're different. They're not exactly the same. So this one is, you know, a kind of a relaxed hand, and this one is, you know, like 2 fingers kind of outstretched a little bit more. They're not exactly the same. These 3 fingers are connected. On this one, 2 fingers are connected. So they're similar, but they're still not exactly the same. And then we also get, you get a set of fists. So I'm glad to see the fist thing continuing. And then, of course, you know, he gets his big accessory in the fact that he gets the golf bag. So this can cinch on his back, and you just sort of stretch it over his arm and his head. It is not a removable strap or anything like that. It's part of it. It's kind of rubbery, and it's going to keep it in place. So I'm very happy with that. It doesn't want to give. It doesn't want to like shimmy around or anything like that. It's basically on him. It is the same color essentially as that vintage figure, which works fine in the context of this figure kind of being, you know, zhuzhed up a bit. It still works. And then they give it all the little bits and bombs and zippers have that metallic paint on it. And of course, you know, you could fit some of those weapons down in there also. So I do like that. I'm happy that it sits in place. That's one of the big things. I was really worried it was going to be flipping and flopping all over the place, and it definitely doesn't. So beyond that, he does include all of the signature sports equipment that Casey uses to dole out his particular form of justice. So we get the golf club,
And we get the goalie stick, and you know, these are all kind of like warped and funky, and of course beaten and battered and bruised. They've got wraps on them, dry brushing. The end of this golf club has definitely seen better days, and you can of course, you know, store them in his bag. He comes with 3 bats of varying degrees of quality. So this one is completely shattered, and like the ends of these 2 are gone, and then this one is also broken off at the top. And then this one is the only one that's good. I can't tell you if any of these are Jose Canseco bats, but I'm happy to see that we have 3 different bats in varying states of disrepair. They did a really good job on this sort of wood patterning that, you know, makes sense for a baseball bat. So I do like those. We do get some hockey pucks as well, which screams something that I'm going to lose before I even finish reviewing this, but here we go. So you got a clean hockey puck here. They're just little black circles, really. And then this one's got some... They've got like tape on them. I don't know if that's supposed to be a thing. I don't know anything about hockey pucks. And then another one with some tape on it. So you've got those. Again, something that's probably already lost before I'm finished with this. But you do have all of that kind of signature Casey Jones stuff. But he does, of course, come with the sprue, the weapons rack system that we see with all of these figures that, of course, warrant them. And his is different. So his is not the same as pretty much all the others. His is very much themed to the sports aspect of Casey. So it's supposed to be, you know, like a street hockey net or something like that. And the net is gone, and it's got the bats. You've got the hockey stick. You've got the golf club, and you've got the pucks over there. So you can kind of set it down, and it works on its own. I do find myself wanting to actually take these off because the blue sort of teal color for Casey stuff is something that I truly remember quite a bit about that figure. So I'm happy to see these included because there's a good chance I'm going to be using them at some point. I really want to take those off because those just scream vintage Casey Jones to me. But I'm also, at the same time, very happy with what they did with all of this stuff. The paint, the sculpt on all these are really nicely done, and they all fit, you know, very nice and snugly inside that bag. And I'm a 1 for weapons storage, and he definitely has the capability to put a bunch of this stuff on him at any given time. So overall, this is a pretty solid figure, and I stand by what I said earlier, that I think this is my favorite of the human figures so far. He's not without a few issues. You know, his head is locked down, and I think, you know, the attempt at a ball peg waist, while slightly more functional, is maybe a little bit less visually appealing on this figure. And then beyond that, I do have that sort of weird sloppy ear paint. But otherwise, I do think he looks really good. This is very much that Playmates figure reinterpreted without the squat pose, in a larger scale, and I think all the hallmark characteristics of that figure are present here. The golf bag looks really good. All the weapons look really good. We get a great solid array of hands to use to make him a little bit more expressive and emotive. And frankly, this is just a really good nostalgic throwback Casey Jones figure. I think this is a very good interpretation of him in the Ultimate scale in this line, and he's going to look really good alongside the Turtles or bashing up a bunch of foot soldiers. So that's going to do it for this look at the Super 7 Ultimates Casey Jones. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.